So my name is Stacy McDonald, for those who don't know me, and I love, love, love making perfume. In fact, I didn't get into Young Living in the beginning for health reasons. I got into it because I loved the way they smelled. And I was interested in I wanted healthier options for my family. I was tired of all the toxic chemicals and I loved smell good stuff. So I thought I'm gonna learn to make my own perfumes and air fresheners and bath products and everything else. And that was what first got me into essential oils. I didn't want all the toxic chemicals in my house, but I was absolutely 100%
Yep.
addicted to perfume.
So I'm making perfumes.
I was interested. I wanted to get all the toxic junk out of my house. So I started making my own everything, my own perfumes, my own bath products, my own carpet freshener. I mean, everything. I started making it all myself. But I was a perfume addict. I was your obnoxious friend in high school who bathed in perfume every few hours to make sure you could smell it at all times, literally every few hours. I'd go into the bathroom at school and we'd all spray ourselves down again. And my all-time favorite was Javon Musk. Anybody old enough to remember Javon Musk? It was my absolute favorite. Love's Baby Soft was another one that was popular, and I hated that one. I hated it so much. And my best friend wore it all the time. So we had War of the Perfumes. But later, Estee became my favorite. Anybody remember that one? That was one of my grandmother's favorites, but and I think that's why I liked it so much. It made me think of her. Again, the limbic system, right? But it lasted a really long time. I could pull a sweater out of the drawer 2 weeks later and it still smelled like my perfume. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But even when I was a kid back in the 70s, they had already replaced most essential oils and perfumes with cheap synthetic fragrances and using chemical extenders in perfume because it made them more money and the scent would last a freakishly long time. And that was what they were after, right? It's funny because another perfume that my grandmother used to wear was Youth Dew. Anybody remember that one? It had a very spicy, exotic scent to it. And I actually happened to have found an antique bottle of Youth Dew. This is it. And I'm not going to open it because I still think there's synthetic garbage in here. But this is like from the 50s, early 50s, and it's real thick and oily. It was actually sold as a bath oil because it was considered kind of selfish for a woman to buy her own perfume. It only came from like husbands or boyfriends or something as a gift. You didn't buy your own perfume. So this was marketed as bath oil, but women wore it as perfume. And later on, they just called it perfume. But in the beginning, that's what this says on this bottle is bath oil. Now, who would have bath oil in this teeny weeny little bitty bottle? It wouldn't last very long, right? But they used it as perfume. And I still think that there's synthetics in there because they had already started using all that, but it doesn't smell the same as it does actually have a more real aroma to it than they still sell Youth Dew than the Youth Dew that's out there today. So I still wonder if that had some essential oils in it at least. But if we go way back, there was a time in history when all perfumes were made using essential oils. In fact, perfumes were better known for use in religious ceremonies for anointing. If any of you were in the Catholic Church, you smelled those smells, right? At confirmation and different times when they would use the anointing oils. There are over 600 references in scripture to essential oils and aromatic plants. It talks about perfumes, ointments, anointing oils, and even references to the art of the perfumer. So perfuming was even a career back then. It was a thing. People were perfumers. I think that it's so cool that God gave us the ability to create and build upon his creation, on the things that he gave us. We're made in the image of God, right? So in everything, we wind up creating art, right? Whether it's food. Yeah, he gave us fruits and vegetables and different herbs to eat and things like that, and the ability to have milk and cheese and things. But he gave us the creativity to make it into an art form, right? to come up with all kinds of recipes and beautiful presentations and make bread and make all these things. So that's the art of food. Same thing with architecture or a beautiful painting. You know, it's all art, and there's an art to perfuming. God likes perfume. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, Proverbs 27:9 says. True perfume, perfume made from the oils that God gave us at creation, is good for the soul. But do toxic chemicals make the heart glad? Or the liver? Or the kidney? Probably not. You don't have to poison yourself to smell good. Somebody should have told the 18-year-old me that back then. And the thing is, if you're using synthetic fragrance, you don't actually smell good. You may think you do, but everybody else whose nose still works knows you don't, I promise. I've stood in line behind you at the grocery store. I've walked past you at the mall. I've sat behind you. And if your toxic perfume don't really smell the way you think you do. Have you ever done that? Have you walked by somebody and just felt like you were gassed out? I mean, your nose burns, you might get a headache, your throat might itch. I mean, it's literally, I can't even walk into a candle store because my whole sinuses start to close up and I feel like I'm gonna, yeah, it's just bad. So the thing is, we get used to those things. And so that person who works in that candle store, or that person who's drenched in all those perfumes, she doesn't smell it. You get used to it. Your body is trying to protect you. So what happened? Why did perfume companies start adding fake scents to their perfumes? Well, my guess is that greed caused providers to load perfumes with all sorts of cheap, toxic, synthetic ingredients. It makes more money for them, right? It's easier, it's cheaper, it sells more. Every year, approximately 8,000 metric tons of cheap synthetic fragrances are produced worldwide. According to the Scent of Danger, a report that was published by the EWG, the average fragrance tested contained 14 secret chemicals not listed on the label. Among them are chemicals associated with hormone disruption and allergic reactions, and many substances that have not been assessed for safety in personal care products. Most perfumes today also contain petroleum products. And in addition to the copycat chemicals that are trying to mimic the scent of the natural botanicals, they also contain solvents and stabilizers and UV absorbers and preservatives and dyes. There's all kinds of garbage in there. These additives are usually listed on the label, but the chemical components in the fragrance itself are only described on the label as fragrance. Okay, they can hide all kinds of things behind the word fragrance. The word fragrance refers to a blend of ingredients, which basically means secret concoction. We don't have to tell you. And that could include any of up to 4,000 different chemicals. And y'all, these are chemicals that disrupt hormone activity, reduce sperm count, and can cause all kinds of reproductive malformations. I think it's kind of ironic that it does all this to your hormones, and then they're marketed as aphrodisiacs. I mean, watch the commercials, right? And this is what it's doing to your body in real life. It's actually disrupting your hormones and making things worse. Seriously, this stuff gets into our bloodstream. It's stored in our fat. It's getting into our systems. All these things. It can also trigger allergic reactions. You know, have you ever been around somebody that, you know, sees you using your oils, or maybe they come into your house and they see your diffuser? No, I can't smell that. I'm allergic to smell. It's like, you know, I bet not, but you know, we'll see how that goes. I hosted a baby shower once at my house, and there were a ton of people there I didn't know because it was friends of my friend's daughter and their parents, their mothers. And I had a diffuser going in the living room, and the room was super packed. And so some people were standing, and there wasn't a whole lot of seating. And a lady wound up sitting right next to my diffuser. And then after the shower was over, I got an email from this lady, and she said, I just have to tell you, I just about panicked when I sat in that chair next to your diffuser because I am allergic to all kinds of scents. And I just knew that I was going to get a headache. And I just kind of thought, oh, well, I can't, there's nowhere else to sit. I'm just going to have to get a headache. She said, but I didn't get a headache and I felt so relaxed and it smelled so good. And I'm just so excited. What was in there? And I got to tell her about oils and why what she was smelling in my house was not something that was going to hurt her. So I got to tell her the difference. Also, when people are wearing these toxic chemicals, they're also, I mean, they're poisoning their families, you know, I mean, you douse yourself in toxic chemicals and everybody around you is smelling it. So the more I learned about the way our skin absorbs everything we put on it, the more I wanted to get my hands on the real stuff, the good stuff. So thankfully, I found out I could make my own perfumes, which are not only healthier and less expensive, they also smell better. They don't smell fake. They don't smell noxious, you know, they don't burn your nose. And ever since I detoxed my whole life, I can't stand the smell of any of it. And that's what's happening. You're detoxing, you're getting that stuff out of your system. And now you can actually smell. The same thing happens with foods. When you get rid of all the junk food out of your life and you develop a taste for real food that tastes good, then the junk food is not appealing to you at all. You don't, you know, you look at that stuff and you think, there's no way I could eat that. Your body gets used to what you give it, and you develop a taste for either what's real and good, or you mask it and you'll eat anything. So the thing is, even if you aren't seeing a negative reaction in your body yet, if you're poisoning your body with chemicals, it doesn't mean it's not harming you. It's a slow poison, okay? And it can come up in all kinds of health issues later. How many people have ever read the book, The Radium Girls by Kate Moore? Anybody? I highly recommend it. She talks about these young girls who were hired to work in factories back in the 20s. They were to paint numbers on clock dials using radium. It's pretty horrible. They didn't know at first that it was poisonous, and they wanted the clock dials to glow in the dark. That's the whole purpose of it. And they actually had, it was like these little bitty paintbrushes, and they had these girls kind of, you know, straighten the point of the brush so they could get a really fine number on there. And but over time, these girls wound up with radiation poisoning, and it was awful. Like pieces of their jaw would just fall off when they'd go to the dentist or whatever with all this pain, and he would try to, it was just awful, awful, awful. Lots of cancers, all kinds of things. And it took years and years and years and years and lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, because the people with money, the people who were making money from this, were trying to ignore the whole thing. It was called, Lisa, it was called The Radium Girls by Kate Moore. It's really important because it kind of shows you some things just don't change, and we have to be our own advocates. And thankfully, these girls finally got justice, but most of them had died. Most of them died, and it was too late for them. So today, we're going to make a perfume that not only smells amazing, but the powerful oils we'll be using works with your body instead of against it. God gave us the plants and the trees at creation for a purpose, and it's no accident that they smell so good. They truly are a gift. They positively affect our bodies physically as well as emotionally, and based on the way they're talked about in scripture, I think that they enhance our spiritual life too. And I have oils that I use for prayer and for focus when I want to, or when I'm reading the word. I like to put a drop of cistus or rose of Sharon on my Bible pages so that my Bible smells different, and that triggers kind of it's time to read, it's time to get into the word, you know, whatever. So it can help all kinds of things. One of my perfume blends, again, doubles as my prayer oil. It's called Sanctuary, and I'm pretty sure I put it in the Google Drive. And if one of you ladies could put the Google Drive link in there, that's where all of our recipe cards are, the ones that we're going to be talking about, and then I have a few extra in there for you too. In Exodus 30, God describes or directs Moses to make a holy anointing oil that included myrrh, sweet cinnamon, and cassia. He actually calls it an ointment compounded according to the art of the perfumer. Again, it's an art, right? Later in the same chapter, he talks about using onycha, galbanum, and pure frankincense. Again, according to the art of the perfumer. God describes perfuming as an art. So I think that's just so neat. So let's just talk now about some perfuming basics. When you place a musical note in the right creative order, you can end up with a masterpiece, right? It's considered a work of art. Perfume notes are kind of the same way. They're separated into 3 classes. Top or head notes, middle, or sometimes called heart notes, and then you have your base notes. And this refers in part to how long it takes to detect the different scents after applying them. So I'm going to switch screens here and show you my perfuming notes chart, which is just a list of common essential oils used in perfuming and how they're categorized. I think I can get it in here. Let's see. I have 2 screens open, so I've got to take this. Nope, that was the right screen. Hold on. There it is. Okay, so these are the different notes. So you have your top notes here. You can, if you want to take a picture of that with your phone or screenshot it, and then we'll go back. Everybody have it? Okay, hang on. I should not be allowed alone.
You're doing great, Stacy.
With technology.
We're all cheering you on. I know technology can be so fun.
Okay, this is not working.
So hit stop share real quick.
I'm looking for it.
Should be right at the top, maybe. I don't think I have.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Again, that's what my family tells me. I shouldn't be allowed alone with technology. Anyway, okay, so y'all have that. All right, so the top notes, let's start with the top notes. Who knows what I mean, when I describe an oil as volatile? Most people probably here. It means the oil is made up of molecules that evaporate into the air quickly. They literally leap into the air. Now, all essential oils are volatile to some degree, but some are more volatile than others. So basically, the top notes represent the first impression you have of a perfume because it's the most volatile. Whether or not you like the perfume or not, that's the one you're going to smell first. It usually comes across as sharp and fresh, but it doesn't last long because it's so volatile. This would include your citrus oils, your mint oils, as well as some herbs like basil, lemongrass, and thyme. In your Google Doc, you also have another card that I'm not going to take a chance and share screen again because you never know what's going to happen with me. But you do have this card in the Google Doc, and it shows the different notes and kind of describes it for you. But the middle note is the main body of the perfume, and it's what you begin to smell just as that top note starts to fade away. It's what tones down the often very strong scent of the top notes and gives your perfume character. So these middle notes actually harmonize the top and the base notes. And at first it can take a few minutes to detect because all you're smelling is the top note at first. And then you start to smell the middle note, and then you're going to kind of blend into the base note. I like to say the middle note is the peacemaker between the two. It balances the top notes and the base notes together. So many florals and spices, including rose, are middle notes. So though the middle notes can sometimes also be used as base notes, it's usually a middle note. And a lot of these are going to be interchangeable to some degree. So there's a lot of middle notes that can be base notes, and middle notes that can be top notes. So you're going to see a little bit of interchanging there, but for the most part, they are categorized. Now, base notes they bring the complexity to your perfume. So even though it takes a little while longer for you to detect its scent, I mean, it can take up to like 20 minutes or so before you really can smell that base note. It's going to linger for a longer time. Okay. And that makes the base notes can make a great fixative because of that. A fixative is what makes a perfume linger longer. And I'll talk more about that in just a minute too. But the synthetic perfumes use fixatives too. They're just usually toxic and they aren't from plants. So we talked about volatile oils, but who knows what I mean when I say that an oil is viscous. A viscous oil is made up of heavier molecules. They evaporate slower. They're not as volatile. They don't leap into the air the way that these oils do. They tend to be thicker. Sometimes they're even sticky. Base notes tend to fall into this category. So let's play Name That Bible Character for a second. Who remembers this verse in scripture? I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. So this was the infamous woman of Proverbs 7 who was trying to seduce some guy in the street while her husband was out of town, okay? But notice she chose oils that were base note heavy to perfume her bed. I found this actually kind of fascinating because the warm, exotic scents of base notes are often described as rich and deep and sometimes intense or sultry. So when I read that, I was like, oh, that's those oils that I read about in the Bible. So I just thought that was really funny. And I actually made a perfume for a friend of mine, and it had a lot of base notes in it because I tend to like the base notes. But I wrote down what she texted back to me. She said, so I went to Office Max to get the workbooks printed, and I put on the perfume you made me before I left. The guy who was helping me with the workbook said, I'm not trying to hit on you or anything, but you smell amazing. So be forewarned, watch your base notes. So oils like vetiver, rose of Sharon, which is cistus, and patchouli are awesome in perfumes, but they can easily overpower it. So you want to use those sparingly, or it's all you're going to be able to smell. But these oils don't slack on the base notes either, because these could also be the single ingredient that makes your perfume absolutely amazing. So don't miss out on that. Ylang-ylang, jasmine, and sandalwood make great base notes, but they can also be middle notes. Again, they're interchangeable sometimes. And if you discover that your perfume is too base note heavy, you can add brighter, more middle tone oils like lavender or clary sage or rose or ylang-ylang. So you can always tone them up. And then if you need to add a few more top notes, choose some of the citrus or maybe some of the mint. You can just play around with it. And if you discover, who here has ordered our frankincense resin before? Anybody? I love our frankincense resin. See, I have some here. I always bring these to classes because I like to pass the actual plant around, or the resin, or whatever it is I'm using to show people this is where your oils, this is where it comes from. So the resin of frankincense, the sap that comes from the tree hardens and it makes this resin, and this is what it's distilled to make our frankincense oil. But sometimes I will take like a piece of it and I'll put it into my perfume, kind of like people use crystals and things like that in their perfumes. I like to put frankincense resin. Yeah, Sarah's got hers. So it makes it nice. It gives it a nice touch. So it has a smoky smell to it, even more so than the oil, I feel like, because you're getting it so concentrated there. Some of my perfumes actually call for a fragment of the resin, but if you do use it that way, make sure that you understand it's over time, it's going to get cloudy as that resin starts to kind of dissolve in there. It will get a little bit cloudy. So sometimes if you want it to look more clear, or you want to be able to see what else is in there or whatever, you can use also dark colored perfume bottles. Like this makes a nice men's cologne because it's black and it's smelly looking. But then you don't see the fogginess too, or the cloudiness. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about fixatives. So a fixative is what makes your perfume last longer. And you'll notice that pure essential oils don't actually last long on the skin. Okay, not the way fake synthetic stuff does. I mean, you don't want that. So you've got to come up with a natural fixative, and that's when our base notes come in handy. Back in the day, they used animal fixatives. That's what the ancient perfumers used, but they tend to be rare, expensive, and they may even be illegal or unethically obtained. So, but animal-derived fixatives came from the digestive system of sperm whales, or the glandular secretions of a beaver, the musk deer, or an animal called a civet. So that was where they used to get it from. They actually believed that the animal musk, which is structurally similar to human pheromones, that they thought it had an aphrodisiac effect. So a lot of perfumers used that as their base note. So yeah, they had like animal guts in their perfume. So I think I'll just stick with the base notes on our oils myself. And you certainly don't want the toxic stuff, because that's what's really going to mess you up. So aren't you glad we have other choices? So for our perfumes, we're going to use the viscous oils, the base notes, and we also can use fatty oils. So if a fatty oil is going to be that's what you're going to use as a carrier oil. So that would be like maybe your sweet almond, or the V6 makes a great fatty oil, makes a great carrier oil. You can also use avocado oil. You could use jojoba oil. I don't recommend using olive oil, because olive oil actually has a smell to it, and it will definitely could make your perfume smell funky. So I just don't recommend olive oil for perfuming. Okay, so the reason that fatty oils hold their scent longer, so essential oils, the molecules are very, very small, and that's why they can penetrate the skin and get into your bloodstream and help, right? For the fatty oil, the molecules are larger, and so they sit on top of your skin, which is why they're good for moisturizing. They don't penetrate, but they're also not volatile. So that's why I can open a bottle of peppermint, you're going to smell it across the room, but if I open a bottle of olive oil, you won't, because one is volatile and the other isn't. So another thing that I recommend when you're doing any kind of perfuming, you want to keep an aroma journal, okay? And trust me, you may think that you can remember it in your head. You can't. You will be really, really sad when you get that perfect perfume and you're thinking, did I use 4 drops or 8 drops? I can't remember. You want to write it down. I don't care how many things you're doing, or how many little bottles you've got going, or how quickly you're going to do it, because you're going to remember. Just don't do it. Just write it down as you're doing it. 3 drops of jasmine, 2 drops of frankincense. Okay, write it down every single time, because you will forget and it will be very sad for you. So ask me how I know. So when you first start out, you may want to use one of the recipes from my Google Drive, or other. Melissa Pepping has a great perfume book. You could get some from there. If you want to try it all on your own, you might want to try the 3-2-1 rule. That's 3 parts top note, 2 parts middle note, and 1 part base note. That's 3 parts top note, 2 parts middle note, and 1 part base note. That's just kind of a simple little thing you can try out if you're, a beginner and you've just started trying to do things. But don't let that limit you, because there's all kinds of, you'll see mine aren't going to follow that rule all the time. Remember, the reason that the base note is proportionately lower in a starter perfume is that some base notes can tend to take over the whole blend. They're controlling. You just gotta understand that from the beginning. They're pushy and they're controlling. So you want to make sure that you don't put too much. And even if at first you think it's going to be fine, oh yeah, I know this smells great, I'm just going to add 1 more drop. It can just overtake it suddenly. So make sure that you start it slowly. Then This is especially true if your top and middle notes are super delicate, okay? Once you get the hang of it, you can get more adventurous, but in the beginning, just try to take it slow and do some of the basics like that. Okay. Just like food, everyone has their own taste when it comes to perfume. Some people can't stand the florals, and some run from the more exotic scents. What some call, hippie oils, right? Like patchouli and things like that. But these same people may absolutely love woodsy or citrusy or grassy. So just experiment and find out. You're going to realize that you kind of have a certain signature profile that you like. And then you'll know which oils to hang around the most. But don't let that limit you, because you can think that you don't like a certain oil and then go put it in this one blend you have, and now it's your favorite. The one that we're going to do today, which is called Enchanted Garden. Again, I'm not usually into the florals. That's not my thing. I much rather hang around with, the more exotic base notes. Excuse me. But if you just start playing with it a little bit, you're going to find out that you like more all kinds of different things. Again, the one that we're making today, it has lemongrass in it. I don't tend to like lemongrass, but in this blend, it smells amazing. And I actually tried it. I tried to make the blend without the lemongrass, and I didn't actually like it, but I added the lemongrass and it changed the whole thing. So there's going to be a lot of things like that. You're going to be surprised. If you find that you're a citrus lover, you may want to stick with lemon, lime, and orange, or bergamot. Bergamot is one of my favorites. Bergamot's actually considered a citrus oil, but it makes the best perfume. You're going to probably notice in some of my recipes that I kind of gravitate to the same oils that I really love, but that's the way it is, right? You're going to stick with what you like the best. Those top notes are just can really be overpowering in the beginning. So and be aware, your limbic system is an amazing creation. Sometimes a scent preference will have more to do with what or who it reminds you of than it does the actual scent itself. So maybe a synthetic scent has made you sick in the past, and smelling an oil that reminds you of that experience triggers that memory, which can cause a negative mental or emotional connection or reaction. I actually think that's what happens a lot of times to the people that say, there's a lot of people that say they don't like lavender, right? But lavender is one of the most copycatted oils there are. Everybody copies lavender, and it doesn't smell like lavender. When people smell our lavender for the first time, they're usually like, oh, that smells really good, but that smells different than what I have at home. Yeah, because you don't have real lavender. That's the problem. And so, but it smells close enough to where it reminds them of the lavender. So they freak out thinking they're going to get a headache, and that's not going to happen. But you can retrain your limbic system. So what you want to do, try deliberately using an oil that you considered negative along with a new positive experience. And then you can create a new pathway in your brain. So like, let's say you had this really bad experience with frankincense when you were a kid in school, in Catholic school or something. And you're like, I don't like frankincense. I've actually had several people tell me that. So try using frankincense while you're playing with your baby, or, when you go on a walk with your dog, or when you're doing something that you really love, and be deliberate with it. Use frankincense every time you do that pleasant experience. And you're going to find that your opinion of that oil starts to smell different. It's like, wow, it smells good. I cannot tell you the number of times that's happened to me, both ways, by the way. Sometimes it'll be something that I really liked, and all of a sudden, I don't like it as much anymore. So it can go both ways, but it really does. There's a scent association that happens. And so you can train your limbic system to like something again, especially if you know it's an oil you need. Make sure that you try to be deliberate there. So one of the most universally popular and expensive perfume scents in the whole world is rose. Did you know that it takes 10,000 roses to make 1 5 ml bottle of Young Living's pure Damascus rose? It takes 60 roses just to make 1 drop of this precious oil. So does that kind of tell you how precious that is and how no wonder it's one of the most expensive oils ever? So if your husband wants to get you roses for your birthdays, just say, no, honey, I would like something that lasts a little bit longer. I'd rather have 10,000 roses. It all comes in this little bitty bottle. Happy birthday. Rose oil has been treasured and used for well over 1,000 years in beauty treatments, as aphrodisiacs, and also for emotional tranquility. Cleopatra used obscene amounts of rose essential oil, as well as jasmine, by the way, to allure the men she wanted to attract. So be careful with this oil. It's powerful stuff. So just telling you. All right, so now I'd like to go ahead and we're gonna make a perfume. And so I don't know who all is going to be making it with me, but if you are, it'd be great if you had your cameras on so we can see you. Again, I'm not going to force anybody to do that, but I would love to see what you're doing. So we can have a lot of fun with this. I'm going to show you you can get perfume bottles all over the place. So you can get fancier ones. These came from Hobby Lobby. So Hobby Lobby has a gazillion really nice perfume bottles. If you want to get something for a gift for someone, or something that you can put on a tray in your, like a mirrored tray in your bedroom or something. You can use these small ones are really cute. You can get these online. I know Amazon carries them. You can get them in bulk. That's where I got a lot of these in bulk, but you can get that. You can, and then of course there's the roller bottles. I'm going to use this roller bottle today because I want to put some botanicals in mine and I want to be able to see the botanicals. So I'm going to use the roll on. But what I often like to do is mix my perfume first in one of these. And so like if I'm doing if I'm experimenting to see which blends work best, I use these little bottles. And you can get these from Young Living. That's where these came from, actually. And what I'll do is I'll take like a white paint marker pen thing, and I'll put a number on it, and then I'll have a piece of paper, and so that I know what oil I put in each one of these. And that way, I can figure out which one I like best. Also, when you're experimenting, making a lot of different perfumes, have a bowl of coffee beans to smell in between, because everything's going to start smelling the same. And you're not going to, it's like, okay, I got to do this tomorrow because I can't, everything smells the same. Part of it is the oils are actually getting into your sinuses, and so you're smelling everything at the same time. But if you smell the coffee beans in between and you make sure you don't touch your nose to the oil, that'll help. But anyway, I like to experiment with these little ones. But when I'm making a perfume, I tend to like to mix it in one of these. And then we're not going to do that today. We're not going to do this today for sake of, I want y'all to be able to see what we're doing. But normally what I do is I mix my base in one of these, and then I mix the oils together by rolling it, and then I try to store it for 2 weeks. If you can store it in the dark for 2 weeks, those oils blend together and smell so much. I mean, it just really intensifies it. You can use it right away and it's going to smell good. But if you can be patient and wait that 2 weeks before you put it into your bottle, you're going to be able to, it'll be worth it. It really does help everything to mesh together well. Okay, so let's just go ahead and Sarah or Amanda, can you pull up the Enchanted Garden perfume recipe card? It's in the Google Drive.
I've got the Google Drive up. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Share.
Got it. If you got it. Okay. So I'm also going to put this in a wish list for you guys, and I'm going to put it down in the comments. If you're not a member and you have somebody that you're talking to, don't don't use my link. I'm just giving you the wish list that has these in an order for you. So I don't know if that's weird. Maybe you can explain.
That's perfect.
Yeah, you can explain that later, Stacey.
Yeah.
I don't want you guys signing up with me if you already, that's not what that's about. But as a current member, you can take the wish list and then log into your account, and then that wish list will be there for you to look at and choose from if you want. Or if that's weird, I won't do that because it just on me as soon as
You're fine. Okay, so go ahead and put your, if you're making this one, go ahead and put your oils in, or if you're making one of the other ones, go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and put some botanicals in here. Now, one thing to remember when you're using botanicals, so I have rose buds here, and I have some chamomile buds, and I have some lavender buds. Now, I've already experimented with this before with this particular blend, and I used chamomile and rose buds, and it worked great. But keep in mind that it will slightly change your scent profile if you use botanicals in there. So a lot of times what I'll try to stick with, something that already has that scent in there. So like if the recipe calls for lavender, I'll use the lavender buds or whatever. And that way, there's no mixing. But this already has such a nice subtle floral scent. I feel like the chamomile and the rose work fine. And again, they're dried, so they're not super intense, but they look so pretty in the bottle. So that's what we're gonna do. And it actually, I think, probably adds to the complexity of the perfume. So that's what in there. And this makes such a fun home party, by the way. People love it.
perfume classes are so fun. They are so fun.
They are.
They smell good.
And I don't get super, people are always getting like, well, can you tell me exactly how much carrier oil versus this and that? I don't really get all that exact. This is what I do. I eyeball it. It's like, okay, if I add oil to this, it's going to be more like a toilet water, right? Probably. It's not going to be super, super concentrated. I could just double or triple it and I'd have an intense perfume. But again, it will evaporate faster if you do that. So I like to have a carrier oil in my perfumes. If you want to, like for this one, I'm going to use avocado oil because that's what I have on hand. I actually also like to use jojoba a lot for my perfumes, or sweet almond oil. Those are kind of my favorites. And just get a pipette. You can get a bunch of these from Amazon for super cheap. And you just add your carrier oil on top of it. Now, since this is a clear bottle, I'm definitely going to store it in a dark place. I'm not going to, have it sitting out by my window on my dresser. I want to protect the integrity of the essential oils in there. But look at how pretty this turns out. Okay, let me get this back on here first. Look how pretty that turns out with the flowers in there. Isn't that lovely? It makes such a nice gift. I love it. So again, you can do this as concentrated as you want. Just put your base stuff in there first and then fill the rest up with a carrier oil. Same thing. I mean, obviously, if I were making one that's actually, this isn't that big. It just looks big because they've got this big thing around it. But if you look in this, it has a little cylinder inside, and that's actually the oil. But if you were using a bigger bottle, let's say something like the room spray bottle, you might want to double it. It just depends on how concentrated you want it. Now, if you're making a spray, so this makes a great perfume too. These are spray bottles. So, oops, there we go. These are spray bottles. So the way that I would do for a bottle like this, I probably would double it first of all, because it would need a little bit more. And let's say it's about right there. So I would probably, if it came to about right there, here, I'm getting real technical and scientific on you, okay? If the perfume came to here, I'd probably fill it up with Everclear to here, and then the rest I would put purified water. So I use Everclear because it want a high proof alcohol so that it doesn't have any scent. The higher the proof, the less there is a scent. Even vodka has a little bit of a scent. So I use vodka. I use their Everclear. So it's always fun bringing all your kids into the liquor store and saying, "I'll pick some Everclear, please." It's just fun. It's just so funny. Anyway, and the same thing if I make a room spray. These are some of my room spray bottles, and I put my oils in, I fill it up with Everclear to about here, and then I fill the rest up with purified water. So you can just eyeball it. There's no specific amount. You can do it however you want and make it as concentrated or diluted as you want. It all works. So I think that about covers it. Did anybody have any questions? Feel free to unmute. Hi, Amy.
I just made it. That smells so good.
Isn't that nice?
It's amazing. I didn't realize I had all the oils until I went and looked, but that's amazing. There's no vodka in it or anything yet, but I just want to put this on plain and straight. That smells so good.
It
Wow.
really is very nice. You're gonna like it. And it's actually, this is one that it smells better over time too, because I made this one and then forgot that I had made it and went back and smelled it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it smells even better. I should have waited.
It smells so high in that jasmine. Just, oh
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
oh man.
Jasmine makes a perfume smell just so high end. It's really wonderful.
Well, and not to throw this into a Lucy Libido class, but ladies, let me tell you about jasmine.
Yes.
Really, really good aphrodisiac. It's really good for you, libido. Ask me how I know. That's all I'm going to say about that. Don't ask me how.
Yes. And that's true. Y'all, you need to Google some of these things. Because we can't tell you everything. We've got secrets, but we can't tell you everything. You're gonna have to do your own research. And another really good one that I used during menopause was Neroli, which is another amazing oil for perfumes. It's one of my favorites. That's the primary scent in Present Time, if you like Present Time.
And just going to throw this out here. I know that jasmine is one of the more costly oils. Precious is a better word, because it's precious if you knew the history of jasmine and the flower and how they distill it. And it only opens at night and they have to actually harvest the flowers at night. Anyway, it's a fantastic story and you'll understand why it is so costly, but you get it free with points. It's a full point value oil. Not all these ones are like that. So it's 88.5. So if you can save up 88.5 points, y'all, you can get it for free.
Yeah. It's totally worth it too. It's just, when I have a perfume party in my house, I don't know how many of you have ever hosted one. It's one of my favorite things to do. But there are certain oils that I put in like a raindrop apron, where you have the little pockets. I'll put like rose, I'll put jasmine, I'll put neroli, I'll put so that, because people don't understand the cost when they're first coming. And so they might say, oh, I just want mine to be all heavy and rose, So they have to raise their hand to get the certain oils, those three in particular. But the other ones I have on the tables. And you can actually do stations for whatever perfume you have at this station, they're going to make here, and whatever perfume over there, and they can make it at the stations, but they always have to raise their hand for the pricier oils. Anybody any questions or want to add anything? Share your favorite perfuming oil. So I'll tell you my favorite perfuming oils: jasmine, sandalwood, ylang ylang, bergamot, cistus, And I really love galbanum, but we can't get it anymore because it's endangered. But I'm hoping one of these days it won't be endangered anymore. I miss it so much. If you have any galbanum, let me know. I'll buy it from you. I have one little bottle, but I'm like, I just smell it every now and then. I don't use it. I just go in and smell it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn off